Allow our monkey mind to quit jumping from limb to limb. And let's just focus on what the next few moments have to bring to us. And so it is. The English word for ego is the Latin word for I. If you translate literally the word ego, it means I. And the ego is basically your identity, or who you think you are. And this identity can act, it can think, it can feel, it can do all these things because it's a mask that we have worn, and it's a costume that we have worn, and we've worn it so long that we begin to really think it is who we actually are, but it isn't. It is who they needed us to be, or somebody wanted us to be, or we felt we needed to be in order to belong. The ego is the sum total of our beliefs, our thoughts, our habits, together with how we identify those things in our body. You say, okay, where are you going? The pandemic has happened, and with the pandemic happened with everyone, men especially, and I know women have been caught with this too, but men seem to have more problems with their ego than women do. Because a man's ego, a man's identity, a man's habit is directly related to who he thinks he is, what his occupation is. I am a doctor. Say, who are you? Oh, I'm so-and-so. I'm this, I'm that. Those are things that we do. Those are not who we are. And each ego considers itself as real. And egotistically, the ego desires to protect itself and to actually gain power over other egos. Now, the ego mind has the belief that we are separate from others and from even life itself. In other words, folks, the ego mind believes that you're here and they're there, and they're going to stay there. And how can I put this today? The ego mind is about conflict, judgment, criticism about us and them, and me and you, and all about I. Where the authentic self, we're using the phrase now, we're all in this together. How can we be all in this together when we're being I conscious? We've got to be oneness conscious. So the ego is, I'm not like them. Then their gays over there, I'm not like them. We're not going to go out for Chinese food because, then they're China. They one who brought this China virus to them. We're not doing that. We got to be a hater. We're not going to pass such and such a legislation that's good for the oneness of everybody because, hey, it's those Democrats that did it. And we're going to get together and we're going to have conflict and act up and act out because it's the Democrats that stole the election, so we're going to storm the Capitol. And then what about on this side? Oh, we're not going to cooperate because it was the Republicans that put that bill through. And does it really matter who put a bill through that's good for everybody just so it gets through? No. And let's see, further on is, we are focused on sexism and racial inequality and demeaning people. That's what the ego does. So I'm looking at Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, Gay Lives Matter, now Asian Lives Matter. Where in the hell is this stuff coming from? We cannot change our behavior just to say, oh, I'm going to act different and be all airy-fairy. In our mind, it comes actually from our brain. Our brain is a mass of a gray and a white matter, but within that is a construct of our mind, and in our mind is the ego, the id, the superego, which is all connected with our nervous system, which is connected to our personality, and it is our mind that causes our body to act out and react in certain ways, and we don't even know what it is half the time because we've lost our mind. So in saying this, let me say this. We are a three-part entity. We're the mind, we are the body, and we are the soul. And the mind tells the body how to act. Your body does not function without the mind telling it what to do. And it becomes so natural, you reach for things where your mind has already told you what to do that. And it works habitually sometimes because the subconscious mind only knows what the conscious mind has put in it. Your conscious mind can only act and react to the data that is inside of it, that is given it. You say, what do you mean? Your conscious mind can only react to what it's been told, what it's been taught, what you've read, the knowledge that you have filled it with. And the knowledge that you have filled it with, when you go to bed at night, then the subconscious mind begins to work on that and perpetually turn that into the reality to where you think that that's really you, and it ends up consuming you. You will always put on a mask to impress others with our false self. And soon enough, that false person that we've created ends up consuming us. And we are lost. We don't know where we're going, who we are, what we do. I ask so many people, I say, who are you? I don't know, I don't have any idea. What are you about? I have no idea. What is your purpose? I have no idea. You see. And in the New Age movement and the metaphysical world, a lot of discussion about killing the ego. We've got to kill the ego off so that the light can shine through us. My take's a little different. The ego is to be loved and guided and prodded and investigated and brought into the light. We don't take the light to the darkness, but we bring the light, the shadows, the fears. We bring those into the light. It's not some monster that lives inside of us unless we make it a monster. But the ego is meant to be a follower, not a leader. And the authentic self is the one that is meant to be the leader. Now, how do we reach the authentic self? And where did we come to the thought that we're separate, that we're not like everyone else? You know, I remember that when I was homeless in LA and I was riding the bus, and Spirit speaks to me through my mind and through my heart and gives me thoughts. I've not heard out loud voices coming to me, but I was riding the bus and I didn't realize it, but I always stood up on the bus. I never sat down. And one day I'm standing there and I'm holding on to the little handle, and almost audible, but still in my mind and in my heart, it says, "So you think you're better than that woman over there, huh?" And it was so loud that I just kind of shook my head and practically out loud said, "No, that's not who me. No, I'm not like that." And I was looking at a woman that she could have been from Honduras, from Guatemala, from Mexico, that she looked like she worked 3 or 4 jobs, and she was tattered, torn, and just spent. So I said, no, I don't think I'm like her. And so then my attention was directed to a homeless man that his junk was hanging out and his clothes were torn everywhere, and he had soiled himself 2 or 3 times, and he was stinky. And the Spirit saying to me, so you think you're better than him, huh? You think you're better? No, that's not me. Well, guess what? That's you. You're just dressed up a little nicer. And the next stop, I got off the bus and I sat and I literally wept. And I said, let me not forget this moment. Let me not forget that we are all one and just parts of one another, but we all belong to one another. A few weeks ago, I had business that I was doing in downtown LA, and then I had to go back out to North Hollywood, and it seemed like every street where I turned was encampments of homeless everywhere. And, you know, our ego really has judgment when it comes to homeless. That's the ego judging. Love does not judge, the ego does. And I got stuck on a street, and they were having work done on the street, and so we couldn't move. And I noticed this tarp that was hooked to this chain link fence coming down, made like a little lean-to. And this little girl ran up underneath the tarp. She could have been maybe 2, maybe 3, little blonde-headed girl, barefoot. And I just sat there and watched, couldn't move. And then must have been her mother, ran out and pulled her back in. And the tears began to run down my face. Because you see, that's not them. Not me and them. That's that's me. That's oneness. And if I put it outside there and I don't realize that that's part of who I am, then I can't be part of the solution for it. I'm just part of the problem for it. And I said a prayer. That's all I could do at that time. And I began to see other homeless around, and how has this happened that it's us and other people? The ego, edge God out. Edge God out. Now when I speak of God, stay with me. I'm not talking about the religiosity of God. I'm talking about God creator, God higher power, God the divine, God by many names, God that is source. That is God that I'm referring to, God with a big G. Now you see, in the 12 steps and in addiction programs, we have a part where we say our best thinking is what got us here. And we try to use that same thinking to get us out of the addiction into recovery, but it doesn't work. It's our best thinking that got us there. It's our ego thinking that got us there. Now let me say this. When it comes to your higher power, listen to me on this. If you create your higher power, you are more powerful than the God or the higher power that you've created, because you are the one that created it. But when we are able to turn our life and our will over to a power that is greater than us, that we're a part of, then we have that source of help that comes to us. Now, how is this? Okay. This creator that I call God created man, made a container, and according to Christian scripture, however it happened, blew the godness into this container, and this container became a living entity. Our mind, our body, our soul, which is right here. It's where your soul is. Right in here. Right by your heart. It's where your soul is. Our consciousness is the fabric of all things. In fact, science, and I lean towards science on everything, believe me. Science has shown that everything at its core is energy vibrating at different levels. In our human experience, consciousness or spirit manifests itself as the energy that composes every form. So I break that down. All energy must take some kind of form. Ego energy has to take some kind of form. Authentic soul energy takes some kind of form. All energy takes form. So mankind became a form. And within us is the little g. In fact, Jesus quoted it when he was caught on the carpet, and they said, well, we're going to stone you. We're not going to stone you because of the miracles we're doing. We're going to stone you because you say that you're God and you like God. And he said, well, it's already written back in the Psalms that ye are gods. So, as I call God, the greatest stem cell in the world, God broke off of God's self, implanted God's self into us, and within us is the godness, as well as the bigger godness out here. It's like the Russian River up in Guerneville. The Russian River runs into the Pacific Ocean. You've got the big giant Pacific Ocean here, controlling vast forces. Then you have the Russian River, which has the same consistency, but it's challenged and channeled, but it's still the same. The godness inside of us is a creative godness that the big God, big G, has put inside of us to co-create with God. Now, talking about the ego, which is separation. You notice when I talk about God, and I'm the only one that I know that does this, okay? I talk about God as God, and talk about God as spirit, because Bible says God is spirit, but as I've said before, spirit, being spirit, spirit can take on the form of man, i.e. Jesus the Christ. Spirit can take on the form of a plant, i.e. the burning bush with Moses. Spirit can take on the form of a natural phenomena, i.e. cloud by day with the children of Israel, pillar of fire by night. Spirit can be all at once or into a singular. So when I'm speaking for me, when I say he, well, you know God, and I'm saying he, and I know that in religious terms and metaphysical terms, we're doing it to have an identification with family. But I'm trying to help your mind stretch a little, okay, on this. Stay with me. That when I say he, I'm putting God out here. God out here. But when I say simply God, recognizing God big G and God little g that's inside, I say, dear God, help me. I'm connecting little g and big G together, and I'm feeling the energy, the creative energy of the Godness work through me and to me. And God does not give you what God does not expect to flow through you. Course in Miracles says this: our job is not to seek love. And I can't tell you how many people say, all I want to do is love and be loved. Our job is not to seek love. Our job is to remove barriers and blocks that keep us from knowing love. Now, can I step over here? God and love are the same. You cannot know God without love, and you cannot love God, and you cannot know love without God. If you know God, you know love. If you know love, you know God. If you think you love and you don't know God, it's something else that you're just calling it love. But real love and God, because God is love. So let me put this in our terms. Our job is not to seek God, but to remove the blocks and the barriers, the unforgiveness, the ego mind, the dark places, the judgment that we're carrying, the condemnation that we have. Remember, I said, I think last week, that there's no such thing as constructive criticism. Construct is to build, criticize is to tear down. The ego wants to criticize. Well, then they're whatevers, they deserve what they get. See, that's not love. That's not love. That's ego. Love says, let me come in and let me constantly bring a new way to bring creation and create new paths for people to know what love is, to know what God and who God is. Does that make sense? And God is not about condemning. God is always bringing restoration to us, constantly restoring who we are. So I need to move on. So how do we get our mind to think the thoughts of our soul rather than our ego monkey mind? Meditation. Eckhart Tolle said this: complaining is one of the ego's favorite strategies for strengthening itself. So when you bitch and complain, just know that you're strengthening your ego, and stop completely. Okay? Wayne Dyer says the ego is an illusion, but it's an influential one. So how do we bypass that? I begin to breathe. I begin to get quiet. And in my quietness, I begin to breathe deeply. I do it to the count of 4. I inhale, and I begin to exhale to the count of 4. Researchers have shown that the average person has 60,000 thoughts going on in your head a day. I'm sure mine's much more. And in between, if you read words, in between every word is a space. And the divine revelation, the divine inspiration God is omnipotent, knowing everything, big G, that wants to have little g know what big G knows. But how does little g know what big G knows unless it connects? We connect through our breath, because it was the very breath that came into that container called mankind that the big G created. And as we connect with that, and our monkey mind begins to be quietened, we begin to connect our soul to the thoughts, the spaces in between the words. Sometimes at night when I go to bed, I'll write down a question I have or a thought I'll have. I have papers everywhere, write them down. And I'll lay it down. I don't try to figure things out. I don't trust my own mind anymore. My best thinking has got me in trouble over and over. And in my morning meditation, and I've said this before, morning meditation is the difference between flipping the computer on and hitting the delete button or hitting the send button. If I don't do my morning meditation, I'll want to do the send button, and the ego gets in there and tells you exactly what it wants you to know. If I've done my morning meditation, I hit the delete button, and the soul button, which is pure love, deletes what it is. So in my morning meditation, I have already given that spaces in between the words to the divine. Dear God of many names, I am here in quietness before you. I am here to see the divine knowledge and the divine wisdom that you would give to me in this present moment. I am open and I am willing. I am open and I am so willing to see things differently. And my friends, Yvonne, Reed, different ones that are watching, it's amazing what a different perspective you get. It's amazing how your heart fills with such compassion. It's amazing how you can say, oh yeah, ego is edge God out. That's not where I'm at. I'm coming from my soul. I'm coming from my authentic self. Today I want you to know, you are the love that you've been seeking for. And as you begin to move the blocks, ask God, little g inside you, to give you little indications in your body when you are making a mistake or an error. Look at little g inside you. And in your prayer time, maybe in the beginning, just consciously connect that with the big G. Can we look at this way? Big G, big God, big G is the power plant. Little g is the transformers that are set in place in each of us. And big G transforms to the transformer all the love that you can handle, all the joy that you can handle, all the hope that you can handle, all the peace that you can handle, all the gifts of happiness that you can handle. So as I say with all of my talks, kindness. Kindness, 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 kindness is the language the deaf can hear. Kindness is the language that the blind can see. and kindness. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others. And remember, tomorrow starts March Mindfulness, 6 a.m. with the 2 to 3 minute meditation. If you don't catch it live, you know it's going to be posted everywhere. If you're looking for love, looking for somebody who wants to show you love and wants to help you on your journey, tune in with me. I'm here for you.